So welcome back to the EPS podcast, where everything is a primary source. I am Eric Paul. You can find this show wherever you listen to your podcasts. We are on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, everything, Twitter, Patreon. Go to patreon.com/EPS podcast. I am delighted today to be joined by one of a very small group of people, Lego Masters, people that have appeared on the Fox program, Lego Masters, to take on the challenges of building things without any knowledge at all of what they're going to offer you and making some incredible things. I have with me today Mr. Corey Samuel. So thank you so much for joining the EPS podcast. And I was saying before I hit record that I am a bit starstruck because my son and I became hooked on. I mean, we were playing Legos anyway. I've been playing with Legos my entire life, as far as I can remember. But having it on TV, on network TV, and being able to watch people, do what you did, basically. This is really cool for me to have you on. So thank you for joining. And we're going to talk today about your business that you started, and that started around the same time that Lego Masters was airing, right?
That's right. Well, technically, my business actually started about 5 years ago, but it was unofficial. It was kind of a hobby I was doing on the side. I'll tell you a quick story. I was going to a wedding. And at this wedding, I like to dress. For those who see me on the show, Lego Masters, me and my brother, we're very snazzy dressers. Mm-hmm. I wherever I go. So I was going to this wedding, and I realized I didn't have a brooch to wear on my lapel, on my suit jacket. Huh. So I was looking for one, couldn't find one. I said, okay, well, wearing a blue suit. I had these blue Lego cufflinks. And I said, well, I'm not using cufflinks. So I'm going to place it on. So I placed this cufflink in the lapel slot, and I went as is. And the amount of feedback that I got for that was just overwhelming. Like, even the groom was like, oh my gosh, if I knew it, I would have wore it, and I said, wow. And then one of my friends who's also into fashion, he was floored. He was like, oh my gosh, where did you find this? I need to get one for myself. And then he looked at it and he said, wait a minute, these are cufflinks, man. I was like, yeah. I kind of the idea to put cufflinks in it. He was like, it'd be real cool if those were actual lapels. And then it was like bulb. I said, oh my gosh, you're totally right. So then I decided to go online and start to see, what does a Lego lapel pin look like? Mm-hmm. And surprisingly, there weren't any. What I saw was those Lego hearts. Yeah. And you saw a lot of Lego hearts all over the place, but you never seen like Lego lapel pins that you can actually wear with your suit. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna be the first. So that's what I did. So I started Samz Brego as an Etsy store, and I was lapel pins through there. A couple of celebrities, actually, their assistants found my store on Etsy, and I was able to get a few pins over to them. They wore it to like awards shows, parades, and all that cool stuff. So it was like, oh wow, it was like I felt like I reached the pinnacle of what I wanted to do, sales and stuff. And then Lego Masters came approaching, and they reached out to me and said, hey, we would love for you to be on the show. Okay. And I said, I think this is fake, because I couldn't do that first. Long story short, I went the path and got on the first season of Lego Masters, and I was able to showcase my Lego, my Lego design quality on the show as a piece of jewelry I can wear.
I was going to say, so that answers my big question was, where did the Lego Masters thing come in? And so they approached you, they found you through your work. And and I remember while watching that show, and then, season 2 as well, that it seems that so many people on there, you have a very split divide between artists and engineers that both use Lego, as their medium. And it's like, and some of the teams seem to have like half and half, but then others were just like completely designers, and the other ones were the engineer types, the ones that could, look at it. And it was just so funny to me, because I'm like, you're working with the same exact thing. It's the same, blocks and pieces and stuff like that, but to see it so differently. And so, just going back to, when you discovered, were you surprised that there weren't more lapel pins? Yeah, that you were the first one to like, oh, I with Lego.
I was very surprised because there weren't a lot on Etsy. There weren't a lot online. So I figured it would be a cool space for me to occupy because I really love Lego. I after taking a year off of working at a job for 11 years, I had a chance to really rediscover myself, and I went to school for art originally. So it was always my goal to be a creator, to be an artist. But I didn't know how I would be able to do that. And I was able to find that through making lapel pins and creating lapel pins and kind of seeing what worked, what didn't work, kind of seeing what people loved, what people didn't really like. And I was able to kind of grow my business from there. And then, you mentioned on the show, there's a lot of artists and there's a lot of engineers. I'm lucky enough to do both. So I started doing teaching kids how to do Lego engineering as a profession. Right before Lego Masters, I was working for a company that did after school programs teaching Lego STEM to kids. And there's a level of engineering that you have to understand in order to teach the kids the project. So I had to relearn engineering a little bit. I had to adapt my artistic skill to the engineering skill and kind of marry the two together. And I was able to be like one of the top instructors, to where I had classes every single day, classes every single week, birthday parties I was filling up, all because I kind of had a niche for this type of career path. So that's what kind of kept me in the loop with Lego, like teaching Lego and then selling Lego at the same time. So my entire life was about Lego.
I was going to say, I mean, like, do you think if it had not been for Lego, the actual product existing, do you think that you would have ever done anything like that? Is Lego what opened the door?
Lego is what opened the door. More than likely, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Lego. I was playing with Lego ever since I was 4 years old. Not building what's on the box and what's in the instructions, but building my own thing. So I would literally ask my parents to buy a certain set, not because I thought the build on there was cool or I liked the type of theme. It's because, those pieces will look great for what I want to do. Yeah. And I would really get it. I would build maybe the first few pages of the build. And then after that, I would just, all right, I'm going to do my own thing. And that's what I did. So that's Lego. Yeah. My creativity.
So you go back probably, I'm guessing we're roughly the same age group. And so we probably go back around the same time as far as Lego. It's hard to remember a time without Lego in my life. I know that. Yes. And my family is Danish heritage. So we have been, it's like, Lego is like part of the family tradition, I guess. Like whenever we'd go to, because my dad's family is all, Danes. And so we'd go to their house to visit and stuff like that. And our toys, they would surprise us with, a box of Legos. And, it's kind of the expectation that, if you're Danish, you should be playing with Legos. And as my brother and I would go about our, youth and stuff, every time we saw something, like if we went on a trip somewhere, we're like, oh, next time we get home, we had like a Lego town that we had in our basement that we would add to, and we had all the road plates and everything like that. And I remember our biggest project for a while was to build a baseball stadium. We found, and Legos are not cheap, they can be, and I think being from Denmark probably plays a role in that as far as the importation, for a while anyway, they weren't made in the United States. So we ended up, we had somehow, remember Tyco made a knockoff version, because they got the mold. And so we had like a billion Tyco, these gray blocks that came for some like castle set or something like that. So like most of our stadium was these gray blocks that kept falling apart because like they didn't lock in tight as Lego. And it was almost like the nice Lego sections were looking at the other part, like it should have been Lego because, that's why the bleachers keep collapsing. But I mean, that was my youth. It was like I would end, but Lego never really has gone away. It's such a simple, I mean, I guess it's a toy, but I mean, do you see it as a toy still, or do you see it more as just like,
I see it now more as something else than a toy. But for the most part, whenever I do buy a Lego set, and you can tell from my background and what you don't see, I have a lot of Lego sets. Yeah. And a lot of those sets is eventually for me to build and to, on the down low, play with. Because I'm still love Lego as a toy. But then I also see it as a tool to create. And that is what helped me kind of grow my business and transition my business from brooches and jewelry to now teaching, using my Lego skill to teach kids. So I see now Lego as more of a tool of learning. I see a tool of creating. I see a tool of building art. I see a tool of opening doors.
Yeah.
And, that's what I've experienced using Lego.
And you were mentioning STEM before. I mean, it's, most kids when they're playing with Lego, and adults as well, they get a big box of Legos in front of them of all different sizes and shapes. And, sometimes I'm just perfectly content, with a handful of Legos and just sitting there fiddling with them and just making weird little designs and kind of mindlessly doing it. But when you're actually trying to make something symmetrical or, look the right way, you got to employ the math, because each one has this, the proper number of pegs. I mean, how many times I've, tried to count the pegs, just to make sure I got to find a blue with, 4, a 2x4, just to fit it right in. So you got to have that. For a long time, the toy manufacturers have always tried to find, they make the educational toy. They make, it's either one or the other. It's the educational toy, or it's just crazy, shoot 'em up weird toy that, does all sorts of goofy stuff. Lego is the perfect balance between the two. You're learning while playing with it, but you're not feeling like you're learning something. You're not like, oh, this is school, So, I mean, that's such a perfect thing.
I tell people all the time, you can bring me into any IKEA store and give me the instructions and the parts, and I'll be able to put that thing together in an hour or two, because people taught me how to follow instructions. As much as I hated following instructions and following how certain builds were, there was certain things that I did love to build. There were certain types of sets I love to build, so I follow the instructions. So Lego taught me that, and I carried that into adulthood. So it's a toy, but it's also a learning tool.
Yeah, I mean, their instruction guide, their manuals are stellar. I mean, they just do such a nice job of. Way better now. Yeah, I've also found that working with Lego has somehow crossed over into when so I've built a few things around my property over the years, and I'm almost like kind of embarrassed while I'm building them. I'm like, oh my God, I'm using Lego based skills to put together like a shed. Like I made a shed last year out of these old antique windows that somebody left on the side of the road. And so it's actually more of a greenhouse. And as I'm putting it together, I was using the same kinds of mindset that when I'm building a little Lego house, I'm like, oh, I guess it does carry over. And I was like, and it's still standing a year later. So it must be, something to that I definitely gathered from it. So I have this form that I use for all of my my podcast episodes, everything's a primary source. This is what I use when I'm teaching primary sources in my classes too. The students are very familiar with this. And we've already answered a few of them already. The material that your company's made from, how you made it, and so the company is you. And your brother, is he part of it too?
My brother is he's not part of it as in active employee. However, he's my brother. So whatever income I make off of us as Brothers Who Brick or me as Lego producer, my brother always has a place. So he's not actively working with me, but he always has a place. That's how it is.
And I remember seeing on Lego Masters when you were being introduced and throughout the show when they would chat with you guys and everything like that, I was like, it reminded me a lot of my brother and I. So, but you're the older brother, right?
Yes, and I love how you ask that question because I get that a lot. That means that either I look really young and I'm like looking like the same age as my bro, or my brother's looking older and you can't really tell us apart. Either way, I'm cool with it.
Okay, good. I'm the younger brother, and I remember while watching the show, your interactions reminded me a lot of our interactions when we were playing Legos together, and building stuff together. And it's like there's that fun, like kind of like cross between concentrating and trying to, and also like. And collaborating with anybody is going to cause for constant compromise. You always have to think about, all right, well, that's what I wanted to do. They're not doing exactly what I want to do, but it seems like their vision's already in its own regard. When you were on that show, what did you find is to be maybe because of that reason of having to work with your brother? I mean, thankfully you guys got to select who you worked with. It wasn't like a random partnerships, but what of all the challenges, what was the hardest one, would you say?
I think the hardest one for us was our first challenge, the teacup ride that we were building and the dream park we were building. Me and my brother, we have a very loving relationship. That's my younger brother. I'm protective of him. And, he's the baby of the family, so he has like that baby tendency. But we always respect one another because we're the only two boys we have like three sisters. So, being on the show together, we had a game plan coming in. And when the clock started, my mind went into tunnel vision. And for me, it was like, all right, what section do we have to work on? We got to nail this section. We got to make it look good. I'm also looking around the room and seeing how other people are building. I'm like, okay, well, we can't look like we got on this show as a fluke. We have to look like we deserve this spot because thousands of people who applied for this and we got in. So we got to know that we were here for a reason. And my brother, he was in a way kind of starstruck because though we weren't really part of the Lego community and we didn't really know a lot of the builders that were there, he was in awe of what they were able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. And he was so focused on that. And I was trying to get him back, to be focused on what we're doing. And we butt heads a lot. So that the first 6 hours or so, there were moments that me and my brother, we legitimately bumped heads and, we kind of argued and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had to step away and go into the brick room and kind of just collect some pieces and start building there, just to get my mind out of, all right, I can't talk down to him. He's not on my level, but I still have to kind of get him up to speed, but also fun. So there was a lot of factors that was kind of plaguing me at the same time. And I was trying to find that balance where, I can guide him, but also give him freedom, have fun, but also be strict. Where's that fine line? So we found that fine line towards the end of that episode where we kind of caught our rhythm and we got our groove, because I realized that my brother got a lot of cool ideas. I need to open up and allow him to give it, and then also tell him, hey, this is a great idea, but it's not going to work for this. And then him actually respecting my decision, so we found that balance. But the first 6 hours of that challenge, a lot of stuff you guys need, but man, that was a rough time for me and my bro.
I was gonna say, I mean, as the viewer, I mean, they condensed into less than an hour, like you said, 6 hours of material. And so we get to watch it, and they insert tension with the music, and the way that they flash the clock, and then and do the smash cuts from one team to the next and everything like that. Did you feel that tension even though you had 6 hours and not 45 minutes as we were watching? Was that tension real while you were there?
That tension was 100% legitimate. For a lot of us builders, we're used to having a month, 2-3 months to do a build and have a deadline. For us who do commission work, we might be given maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks to get this work done. So we can kind of stretch it out a little bit. When you're on a show like Lego Masters, you literally have a time that's counting down, and you have cameras all around you. And though you are focused on your build, you have producers asking questions. You have camera crew that's moving around. You have Will Arnett in the background, cutting jokes and stuff like that. Yeah. You see the brick crew, they're looking at the builds, and they're smiling, they're kind of frowning and stuff like that. So you're seeing all these things from behind. And you're like, it's overwhelming. It's a lot of noise that's coming in, and you have to stay focused on your build. And then on top of that, you have to make a decision on your build, because you can't go 3-4 hours in and say, hey, you know what, this ain't working, we're going to scrap it. You just lost 4 hours, and then you have another 6 hours to rebuild the project and get it back. It's very hard to do. So it tested the strength and the endurance of a lot of the builders, including myself, to be on the show.
And I imagine, though, that a lot of that probably carries over into your business then, right? Because, I mean, on the one hand, you're probably like, oh, good, I don't have just 6 hours to do this. I have a week or I have 2 weeks. But that kind of like, having to focus, having to, know exactly, I'm imagining that probably helped quite a bit with building your company, right?
Oh, absolutely. For me, it's kind of like a badge of honor, because whenever I do an event, or if I'm doing a class, they advertise me as Lego Master Corey. So this was a guy that was on Lego Masters. That means he is the master of Lego. And it's, even though we didn't win or anything like that, people still consider us Lego Masters. So I look at every work that I put out, whether it's an event, whether it's a commission, that I have to take it up to the highest pinnacle of what I can deliver. I can't cut corners. I can't say, well, I have a week to get this thing done. No, I'm gonna work at it as if I'm on the show. I'm not gonna rush through it, but I am going to take special care of what I present, because at the end of the day, what I give them, it's going to be a part of whatever installation is going to be a part of their lives, is going to be a part of my brand forever. So if my brand is known for, oh, okay, he does these Lego things, and he does it half-hearted and everything like that. Yeah. If I have that as my reputation, then my business is going to sink quickly. Right. So I always try to give 110% in everything that I do, just like I did on the show.
Right. And we as viewers saw that very clearly, that, everybody there was passionate, was invested in it, was really trying. And it's so unique, though. I mean, in a way, I think Lego Masters, your company, everything that we've been talking about is very 21st century. Like, it could not have happened. I mean, if you pull it back, the layers of it, you're like, okay, well, obviously, if Lego didn't evolve the way that it did when it did, no Lego Masters. But also, reality challenge game show TV has its own history too. That really took off around 2007 with the writers' strike, because a lot of the TV programs are like, well, we can't have scripted shows anymore, so let's go with game shows and reality shows. And people really got into watching, like, Top Chef, or I forget the name of it now, but the one where they give the challenge of, like, here's all your recipe, here's all the ingredients, make this dish today. And Iron Chef, that's it.
Yeah.
And all these other ones. So like, you have all that, and then on top of it, you were mentioning about like Etsy and just internet commerce in general. I mean, we've gotten so many layers here that like the timing of all of this is just so, it reports back out to us, like 100 years from now, somebody looks back at Lego Masters or looks at your company, Samz Brego, and they're like, oh, that's the first half of the 21st century. That's like the really only time that could have come about. I love the idea of Lego being part of like a fashion accessory. It reminds me back, I think it was probably around the 90s or so, that a lot of teenagers started to like make their tuxedos and prom dresses out of duct tape. But like, remember that they were like, you'd see it on the news or something, like, this kid shows up to, and he's kind of glistening, but that's not very subtle, is it? It's like, whereas like Lego is a little just, accoutrement, like it's just a little hint is, it's enough to get attention, like you said, at the wedding, but it's not enough to like have people be like, what are they doing? It's like, it's so part of our,
right. It's like the times. Right amount of attention, but also like kind of like you look at it and you don't think about it, but then you kind of double glance like, wait a minute, is that a Lego?
Yeah.
Then that goes back. I used to play with Legos when I was a kid. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I'm gonna go and buy some Lego now. I've heard countless stories of customers who've purchased one of my Brego, and they go on and they end up buying Lego and getting back into Lego. It's such a cool feeling to know that, a company that I support because of the brand that it's given to me and allowed me to kind of create my own today, and also and enabling me to be on TV shows. I'm able to get more people involved in it and get more people and eventually, get more revenue to them, which helps me in some weird way because it brings me more customers. So it all is like a circle, it's awesome.
And it's very unique. So your relationship with Lego, I mean, you're in regular communication with them, or they, do you work with them directly?
Not at all, to be honest with you. So like I don't get special privileges when I go to a Lego store. I don't flash a Lego Masters badge, and we were really hoping that we would get something like that, but we never did. Sometimes Lego, like, it's very weird because Lego is they're Denmark, so they're very, very isolated. Like they're very secluded. So they kind of stay in this bubble over there, and they will talk to me like I'm a regular customer. And then as the conversation continues, then they'll realize, oh wait, you were on Lego Masters USA. I can push you along to another department, but then whatever their final say is, that's what it is. That's kind of like the relationship that I have with Lego, where I can't get special privileges, but if they notice me, then they'll help me a little bit than they would have if I was a regular customer. So that's as much as my involvement with Lego.
Right. But I mean, it's really cool for them as a company to just kind of put themselves on that same level as like a piece of paper or, paint or something like that, where it's not like, well, we're the Lego brand, you have to follow our rules, or, you have to do this with our product. It's like, here's the materials, do what you want with it. And that's like really their whole, thing. Okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, you're half right and you're half wrong. So the thing is about Lego, number one, they're very strict about how you use their brand.
Okay.
You can use it for whatever you want. I've been using it as a fashion piece. Now, if I didn't get the okay from Lego that gave the okay to Fox would have told me that I cannot, I cannot wear Lego like this because it was never intended for me to wear it like that. So Lego had to give me the okay to do that. However, for other members that was on my season, they wore Lego on their hats. They wore Lego as a necklace and stuff. But because Lego didn't want that part I guess, promoted, Lego shut that down. So they said,
really?
no, you can't put Lego pieces on a hat. You can't do that. Another thing is if you're selling Lego. So I've learned this while I was researching stuff in my business. If I'm making X amount, then Lego will not say anything. Lego's okay with me just doing what I do, selling the Lego, and that's fine. Once I get over that amount, then Lego is going to reach out and say, hey, blase, legal, blah, 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 please stop. So it's for them is really, what you call it, not cherry picking, but it's like a case by case.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's regulation. They're not just like whatever, there's a little bit of
they have a fine line.
Yeah.
They have a fine line. Cross that line, then they'll let you know all the legal stuff. And for a person like me, there's nothing I can really do about it. They say, hey, you know what? We're going to take over Samz Brego. I can't sell them Samz Brego because my main material is their material. Yeah. So I can't do anything about that.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to not promote this podcast. Be like, oh, by the way, you can do whatever you want with Lego because he says you can. So the some of the other questions that I have when it comes to, and I guess we can just kind of go from your company to just Legos in general to the show and everything like that. But who do you find is your most, so one of the questions I always ask is who's the intended audience or user of this, whatever this is. In this case, it would be your creations. I know that you said that you work with children a lot with their STEM and STEAM classes and things like that. But when it comes to your creations, who do you find is the most common audience or user of it? Who's your biggest customer, maybe demographic?
Biggest demographic is usually adults for my creations, my Brego pins. For the obvious reason, children shouldn't be using these pins because they have sharp ends.
Right.
But whenever I go to a Lego convention and I have a whole bunch of my pins for sale, it's usually adults who buy them. Whenever I do sell them online, it's usually adults who buy them. And the reasoning behind them buying them is because they want a statement piece. Yeah. So I guess my demographic is more the 25 to 39 age range because they want that conversation piece to add to their repertoire. They want that extra flair to their outfit. They see how I wear it and how other people wear it. They say, "Oh, that would be a great color to wear with my sneakers or wear with my shoes or wear with my suit, my tie." Stuff like that. So those are my targeted audience when it comes to my pins.
Because I mean, it's not something, like we said before, it's not something you can just get anywhere. I mean, it's very unique. It is a conversation piece. And it definitely appeals to that age group for obvious reason because they have their own connection to it. No pun intended, because Legos and there's connections. But they have their own youth. So a few weeks ago, my family and we went to Hartford, Connecticut, because they had 90s Con there, and it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I've never been to a con before. I would like to go to a Lego convention. That would be cool because but or one of those gatherings. But this was just like a celebration of an entire decade, and they had people from mainly like ABC, TGIF Friday celebrities, like the stars of those shows, and some Nickelodeon cast members and stuff like that. But what I was more fascinated by was the people that were there, including, and so it was all basically that age group that you just described. Yeah. And I think that Lego has been a company, they've been around since like about 100 years now in Denmark anyway. They've been around for a long time, but it wasn't really until the 60s and the 70s that they crossed over to the United States.
Right.
And it seems that anybody born and growing up anytime from the 70s onwards has a special place for Lego. It's like in their lives. They see it as a direct reminder of their youth. And a lot of us are becoming more and more comfortable with displaying those kinds of things very proudly. We're like, yeah, here's my button from that has Beavis and Butthead on it or something like that from the 90s, and
Exactly.
or here's my in this case just a little hint, but here's my Lego, just so and it's one of those ways of just demonstrating to it, because across the country everyone knows Lego. It's not like something you have to be like, well, this is a New Jersey thing, or this is a only us on this side of the everybody knows Legos. So I'm imagining that's probably what is making people want to say, yeah, I want that on my fashion, and not just in the basement with the other Legos and stuff like that. So
definitely a nostalgia thing. So that a lot of times some people, they'll purchase my Brego pins just for that nostalgia pop, just so they can have that, they can remember that part of their lives as a kid. Maybe they don't want to purchase Lego and have people, see them purchasing Lego. Maybe that's just they just wear, and they could just say, all right, well, this is me.
It's just enough, right? I mean, I was so glad when my son was old enough to start playing with Legos, and I got him a few, and then I called my parents up and I'm like, you still have my Legos, right? And they're like, yeah, we got a big box of them, because I look back and I'm like, the gap of time that I wasn't playing with Legos is actually pretty short, because I kind of embarrassingly stayed into it, as in high school. I'd come home from school and add a little bit to my Lego town, and then eventually I was like, I had my first girlfriend, and I was elated when she was into Lego too. Like, she's like, yeah, I have a few. I'm like, oh, okay, good, because I can keep doing it. And wow. And then when my son got into it, just a couple years later, I'm like, oh, okay, so the time in my life that I haven't been playing with Legos is actually pretty small by comparison. And so it's been a lot of fun having him, with his Lego stuff, and just, playing with him and thinking of all these fun stuff to do. And and you have kids, right? So
I'm adult.
I'm assuming, okay, so he's not quite Lego age yet, but
but he is inquisitive. So he whenever I am building with Lego, he looks at the colors. He can he doesn't hold them. He just kind of flicks his finger across them and kind of get a feel for it. So I'm very stoked to have a son where I can share my love for Lego, and hopefully it continues on through him. That would be great.
It was, I'm sure it will, because I can't see, I can't picture a kid being like, no Legos for me. Like, I don't like to create. I mean, it's always been such a wonderful, it's such a, I don't know, it just brings kids together. You just, sometimes, like, I've been to, like, one time I was at a park and they just had a big Lego table for the kids, and like they dumped a whole bunch in there, and for the most part they're all getting along. Occasionally kids will reach for the same piece and they'll get a little argument back and forth, but I would say overall, it's like the most democratic form of play, because everybody can just, like, all right, I'll just find this piece and put it all together, and they're you can see their brains churning, they're trying to come up with something, and so it's really not something that I see. Lego did go through a time where it seemed to be that they were trying a little bit too hard, though. Do you remember that era where, in I'd say like the early mid 90s or so,
they were going into bankruptcy. They were losing steam. There were other toys that were more popular. Video games started to gain momentum. The PlayStation versus the N64, the Dreamcast. All these different things were coming in, and people just weren't playing with Lego. And they did almost file for bankruptcy in the late 90s, early 2000s. But then the Lego movie got greenlit. And building the Lego movie. When the Lego movie came out, that was the shot of adrenaline that Lego needed to get a second wind. And
get right back in there.
Yeah.
Because they seemed to go back to their fundamentals then, didn't they? Because I remember when I was moving away from Legos, I wasn't buying new sets when I was a teenager. I just had stuff I did, but I was noticing that a lot of them were just like three pieces. Like they would, be pre-built stuff and just kind of like lock them together and like, well, I just made that, big tarantula robot thing or whatever. And you're right. They had so much to compete with by that point. The 90s were just like one distraction after another. It's like like you said, the video games, you had the cable TV, the movies, and it's like mass media was just piling up so much by that era that Legos really couldn't compete. But then but the audience seemed to grow with it too, though. I mean, so when around the early 2000s, I think is when that generation of people who are growing up in the 70s were having kids. And I loved Lego Movie. First time I saw it was actually when I think we were in the hospital when my wife was pregnant with our son, and I was just flipping the hospital TV channels and Lego Movie came on. I'm like, oh, watch this. And from the beginning, when they sing the Everything is Awesome song, I'm like, this is actually kind of how I pictured my Lego guys singing. Like, this is how because they're always smiling. They just kind of have this, kind of look on, and just the way that the movie progresses and everything about it. I'm like, yeah, this is Legos going back to basics. And I'm glad that they did, because that's what they're good at. They're just good at, fun storytelling and stuff like that. And so I think the last thing that, because I don't want to take up all your time. I know, like I said, you have a young son, and you're a busy guy, so I don't want to go on for too long. But I wanted to, let me see if I can get my share screen up for just a moment. Oh, it's right in front of me. So I found this. I have this advertisement.
Oh wow!
From the late 70s, early 80s, I think. And I use this, and I guess I'll have to put a picture up on social media when I make this podcast. Otherwise, people have no idea what we're talking about. But I use this with my tests for pop culture. I teach a pop culture class at school, and this one comes up, and the question is, who is this advertisement made for? And a lot of students are like, oh, it's for kids because, there's a kid. I'm like, no, if it was for the kid, that toy would be the only thing in the picture. But what I love about this is it shows a little girl holding up this, thing, and you can hear the parent saying, what is it, honey? And it says, what it is beautiful. And it's just this crazy concoction that she made with Legos. And then they go on a list over on the side saying, all the different age groups that Legos was perfect for. And I think the time period in which this came out is just perfect, because this is when Lego hit its stride, and it has everything to do with, because most little kids can't afford their own toys. They rely on their parents to get it for them. And the parents were probably like, okay, this is post-Vietnam War. Do I want to buy my kid the army toy or the machine gun toy, the cap gun, or get them something that every single time they play with it, it's going to be different, that they get to be creative. And so do you think that an ad like this was present in your household or got into your parents' mind?
Yes and no. For my mother, yes. For my father, no. And the reason why, my father, he was more of a strict parent. Like, it was all about books. For us, if we wanted to be creative, we can draw. He only saw Lego as a toy, and a toy that is just messy because the pieces are everywhere. And he's so if the pieces were everywhere, it was just a mess, and he hated that. However, my mother, and I'll tell this story real quick. When I was young, I used to go to a preschool, and the preschool had all these different toys, but they had a bin of Lego. And I would always be at that bin of Lego, and I would stay there the entire day. You wouldn't even hear Corey speak, because I'm like that bin of Lego. And then somehow some of those Lego pieces ended up in my pocket, and somehow they ended up at my house. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
But my mom, obviously she does laundry. She gathered all of these Lego pieces and noticed that, one Lego piece I built a car, the other one I built an airplane. She's looking at it, she's like, oh my gosh, like he built this, out of these random pieces. And we brought him back to the school, and the school ended up donating some Lego pieces to me, because they saw that that's all I did. And my mother saw that as a way for me to be creative. Mm-hmm. And it meant that she didn't have to buy G.I. Joes or Hot Wheels or any type of other expensive toys. She can give me Lego and I will be satisfied building my own toys.
Yeah.
And that was the spark on the ember that lit everything aflame. So, yeah.
And now that you use that toy or that, product to make a living, I mean, that must be the ultimate. And, I
tell my mother this all the time. I said, Mom, can you imagine if you decided not to encourage this? Look at me now. I'm a Lego master. I get to travel all over the United States and hopefully the world, teaching kids how to build with Lego, doing talks, encouraging people to follow their dreams and never to look at, something as a toy and see it as just that to see it as a tool to build something even bigger. So, I tell her that all the time, and she says, you know what? She's very happy that she decided to allow me to have this sort of creativity at such a young age. So because of that, I get to do what I love.
That's so great. And it's so great that, all the things that came and went that allowed Lego to develop the way that it did when it did. Mm-hmm. We just can't be any more grateful that it happened. So, and I'm equally grateful that you took the time to talk to me tonight. I really appreciate it. And I hope that, just being able to talk about Lego and everything that's done for you has been as fun for you as it was for me hearing about it. So thank you so much. And for all of you listeners out there, if you liked what you heard, please go to patreon.com, EPS podcast. It can be found there. And support this, because just as much as I was into Lego, broadcasting and talking on the radio is something I picked up. I used to find tape recorders around the house and make my own radio shows, and so that's where I am with this now. So and in the background you might hear my dad stepping on a Lego and swearing and getting mad. Put these away. They are sharp. They are not, as your dad was right about that. They get messy, and a stray Lego is enough to you don't need any kind of guard dog at your house against intruders. You just leave some Legos out.
On Lego on the floor, and that's it.
That's all that. So Corey Samuels, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. And for all you listeners out there, join us again on the EPS podcast, where everything, including Lego Masters, Samz Brego, and Legos in general, is a primary source. Have a good night, everybody.
All right. Thank you.